Good morning, class. Good afternoon, class. Just want to get confirmation on my voice. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just looking into my voice on YouTube. In the meanwhile, welcome everybody to the Unacademy platform, which I think you know is India's largest e-learning platform. So I seem to have got confirmation on my voice. So on that note, I can certainly continue. Welcome all of you to the Unacademy platform, India's largest online learning platform. CAT and the other management exams are going to be our target this year. This is a brief profile of myself, Aritro Dasgupta, an MBA in forest management from the IFM in Bhopal. Got a decade's experience in these areas of teaching, training, strategy consulting, and content writing. My experience has, of course, primarily been in India, but I've also worked in the Middle East and been published in a publication, a trade journal in the USA. Some of my recording sessions have been shown in a university in Nigeria. Toppers for several exams in the recent years have been my students. Exams such as CAT, CLAT, and DUJAT, they have been my students all this while. Right. So what you're going to get on the Unacademy platform, this is what you're going to get every day. You get live classes. Something went wrong with the PPT. I think I need to turn it on again. Let me just quickly do that. Right. So you get daily live classes. In fact, our channel's name is Let's Crack Management Exams. So there you will get all these classes as well, if you notice. Right. So my older sessions are also present there. In fact, today was my debut on the special classes. So some of you were there. Quite a few students were there, and it was good interaction. I'm assuming some of those students have come in here to this session as well. There are live tests and quizzes on a daily basis. The course content is structured from the center. Our head office is in Bengaluru. From there itself, it is structured. And of course, you get unlimited access to the classes. Once you are enrolled, you don't need to worry about missing some class because all the older sessions are present here. Right. All you need is a laptop, PC, or a tablet. You can view our sessions anytime. Mobile as well will do. Right. This is a profile of some of our leading educators. You can see the code names and the number of followers they all have. Of course, they are from verbal, quants, and reasoning background, but I will be helping you with general awareness, which is again a really important topic. So this is again a platform, some more of the educators shown, and this is a sample of how you will be receiving the notifications from Unacademy. And this likewise is a slide to show you the notifications for the separate batches which are formed. So these are the batches which are being formed. You can take a look. So there is no language barrier. That's the best part. I myself also keep speaking in Hindi from time to time, especially when it is interactive, when there are students there. And that is what did happen in the previous session, which I took on the special classes platform. You can learn anytime, anywhere. All you need is the device, as I told you. Even if you missed a class, you can go back and check out the session. You can interact with the educator to get your doubts cleared. And just to give you a point, this is how you can actually do it. So you can see my cursor on the right side of the YouTube page. It says welcome to live chat. So please feel free to put in your points, any doubts, any questions you have. I will be happy to inform that. So I had a few students for the special classes. I'm assuming and I'm hoping that I do have students from that batch here attending today as well. There are live polls which I will constantly keep you guys engaged with. This PDFs and learning material, this is something which is mostly with the Unacademy platform, not so much here, because there are lots of questions that can be discussed from time to time. There is a detailed report and analysis of my classes which you will be receiving. So not just my classes but the others as well whenever you take tests. So there are a lot of full-length mock tests. There are also topic tests on individual topics. There are sectional tests on a complete section at one stage. So all these classes you can take, you get an exact analysis of where you stand versus the rest of the country. I want you guys to read this slide once, both the sides. This is my code at the bottom. You can see AD09. Right, so if you're going for the 12-month program, you can go with the one on the left. If you're going for 2 years, you can go on the right-hand side. I'll just turn on the charger. Right. Okay. So you can see that for 1 month, it's quite expensive. But if you take the longer term courses, they are much more value for money. So on that note, I'm done with the introduction on Unacademy. I will now start with the daily newspaper readings. Today is 10th of August. So let me get the newspaper. As usual, I'm starting first with the Hindu newspaper, which is considered the best in for general awareness. So let me just get that for you guys. Right, I think the angle is better now. So before I start, there's something which made me really proud today when I turned on the newspaper. Right on the first page, you have a full page ad on an Unacademy event. So this really fills me up with a lot of joy. Because of course right now I'm so much associated with the organization. So it's about defense exam preps. There's a free webinar on 14th and 15th of August. Lots of the top dignitaries will be the speakers, so their names and their profile has been briefly mentioned here. So do watch out for that. So now I'm going to start with the first topic for the day. The Hindu, as you can see the newspaper perched here. So there has been, a few days back I discussed about a case in Gujarat in the city of Ahmedabad where a COVID facility was actually torched down by mistake. There was an accident and about 8 people died there. Something similar has happened in another part of the country in the state of Andhra Pradesh, in the city of Vijayawada, where about 10 people have died due to a fire in a COVID-19 care facility. 20 patients have suffered burns. The Chief Minister of the state has already announced a 50 lakh rupees each to the kin of those who are the deceased. Right, but there's some really big news from the Defense Ministry. The Union Defense Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, he says there is going to be an import embargo on 101 items. This is as a part to make India more self-reliant. So he says that this is done with an aim to boost indigenous manufacturing in weapons. So if you go back a couple of years back till 2017, defense production was actually a government monopoly. 2017 saw defense production corporation being delisted from the monopoly list. So now in the monopoly list, you only have railways, which is also undergoing change, and nuclear energy. They remain the last two of the monopolies where private firms are not allowed. But Reliance Defense Industries was one of the first major manufacturers on the private sector. Their first plant came up in Hyderabad, but now several other companies have also come up. So what Mr. Rajnath Singh says that the government intends to reach a turnover of about $25 billion through indigenous manufactured defense products, right? And also expects to export product worth $5 billion. This is immense, and this will obviously, as you can understand, lead to a lot of job creation within the country. Further, he goes on to state that government contracts worth over 200 crore, no foreign company will be allowed to participate in the tender. And in fact, this year itself, he has all this while been speaking about the future, but even the present, he points out that this year 52,000 crore worth items are to be bought only from Indian companies, and a lot of this will actually be announced formally by the Prime Minister as well when he gives out his Independence Day speech on 15th of August, the Independence Day. I had told you day before yesterday about the landslip which took place in Idukki district of Kerala in a tea plantation, which then led to about a few more than a dozen people, about 18 people dying initially. The numbers were added up. By now, the toll has gone up to 43. And in fact, about 23 people are still missing who are feared, perhaps dead or in critical condition. So this is something the Forest Department is working around the clock with the workers to search for their bodies. A dog squad has been deployed along with flying drones as well. The Uttar Pradesh government has seen about 3.5 years of the government. So it's just a year and a half remaining for India's most important state in terms of politics. The state which sends a staggering 80 MPs to Lok Sabha and has more than 400 MLAs in its state assembly. So the opposition parties, BJP is now in power. So the opposition parties such as the Samajwadi Party, Bahujan Samaj Party and the Congress, they are not necessarily together, but yes, they are trying to woo voters to pose a challenge to the ruling BJP. So for that, some of the poll promises have been started. There is a very interesting story at the bottom of the page, and I had told this to you before, that often on the first page at the bottom you have some relatively lighter article which is indirectly connected to the main story of the day. So right now we are having monsoons and several states in India are trapped under heavy rains. Assam was the first state to be real badly affected. More than 100 people have tragically died. Bihar, another state badly affected. Now Kerala and Maharashtra are also facing a deluge. In the state of Karnataka, something interesting has happened. So the Tungabhadra River, which is actually a tributary of the Krishna, but it's still in its own right one of the largest in the south. So the Tungabhadra River has been swelling up, and there's a story about 50 monkeys, a troop of 50 monkeys who were camping near a tree canopy, and they got isolated because the waters of the river swelled up and it flooded. Monkeys, of course, sort of natural swimmers, but they can't swim when the currents are too fast or when the distances are long enough. So they took refuge in that tree, but for how long? So the forest department sent a boatload to rescue them. But of course, monkeys, they wouldn't really hop on. They did not trust the people. So then what was done is something else was done. The district fire officer, this was one of the things that the local departments worked on. They put up ladder, a rolling ladder, so sort of like a bridge, and using that ladder, these 50 monkeys eventually came back, and the local authorities, they also whisked away the local people so that the people do not scare the monkeys. So that's great news. Most of the monkeys, I think all the monkeys have now been rescued, so good for them. Right. There is also this shocking news about how COVID-19 right now India is has become sort of an epicenter. In fact, we are having, if you only take the data for the month of August, the report says that India has the maximum number of cases and the maximum number of deaths. If you're taking only the month of August in the world, we are now number one for this month. Brazil has crossed the 100,000 figure in terms of deaths. Right, Mexico remains third among deaths. UK the fourth. India is on the fifth rank. But UK, the number of active cases is reducing sharply. There is this report on what several of the states in India have done. Especially, there's a report from the southern Indian states. So I'll just read out a few of the highlights of what these states have done. So on top, it's about Tamil Nadu. So Tamil Nadu, what they have done is free rations have been started from April to July. It was lots of NGOs were involved in this, and also the PDS network. India's PDS network is the world's largest, the public distribution system. Free meals have also been started from the Amma canteens. Amma canteens were started in the previous Jayalalitha government, 2011 to 16, when the ADMK was in power. They retained power, of course. So the Amma canteens are extremely popular, and they are being used as well in this case for free meals. Quarantine support has been extended. Private schools have been sent a directive for on payment of fees till a certain amount of time. Rents being deferred. The payment of electricity bills has been extended till 31st of July. All of this is in Tamil Nadu. Further, there is news from Kerala. In Kerala, there's another scheme which is the Kudumbashri model, which is run by women primarily. That has swung into full action. Community kitchens have been opened up by the local bodies. There is also a department known as the NORKA, N-O-R-K-A, which stands for Department for Non-Resident Keralites Affairs. So 58.5 crore rupees has been allocated there, because Kerala is one of the states which sends the maximum number of people abroad and is actually the biggest beneficiary in terms of remittances. If you take last year, Kerala was the highest earner. Do you know this term remittances? Let me just ask this out on the... Are you aware of this term remittances? So remittances, if anybody is aware, I can see there are live viewers, so please answer. So Kerala, as I told you, last year was the highest recipient of remittances from abroad, because a significant population of the country stays in the Middle East. Okay, Shreya, nice having you here. You were there in my special session as well. You had some questions, some other questions. हम इसी class में address कर लेंगे, ठीक है? You had told me you wanted to ask something. Anyway, so what are remittances? Remittances are monies, excess incomes which are sent by residents from one country staying in another. Let me write it down properly. Remittances are amounts sent home by Indians working So this happens when an Indian, let's say, or somebody from a developing country stays abroad. Okay, Shreya. So I am from a developing country. I stay abroad and I earn whatever. May not be a great amount of money, but even if I'm saving $1,000 abroad or even $500 abroad, $500 translates to about 35,000 rupees, which is a lot of money back home. So if I send that much money at home, especially in a rural area, but even in bigger cities, that's really helpful for this thing. So usually it happens that a national from a developing country stays abroad in a developed country, and from a developed country the money is sent, because developed countries have stronger currencies. Right, Shreya? So you are probably aware that people from Kerala, they are in large numbers staying in the Middle East, and from there a lot of money is sent. USA, UK, Canada, Australia, these are countries where a lot of Indians do stay, but then they end up becoming citizens. So after a generation or two, they stop sending money back home because they are residents of those countries. The Middle East does not grant citizenship, which is why as many years you stay abroad, you continue to be somewhere or the other an Indian. So you keep sending money home. That is the big advantage Kerala has. So that's why this lot of amount of money has been put in. The remuneration for the National Health Mission employees on contract and daily basis has also been increased. This includes a risk allowance of 25% for nurses and other health workers. Right. In Karnataka, the total amount provided as relief for the unorganized sector has been immense. It stands right now at 2,272 crores. Hindi. Okay, Shreya, no problem. So remittance क्या होता है? मान लीजिए आप इंडिया में, आप ऑब्वियसली इंडियन सिटीजन है, आप अब्रॉड गई हो, ठीक है, आपको एक नौकरी मिली है यूएस में एंड योर सैलरी इज $3,000 अ मंथ, ठीक है, $3,000, $4,000 मान लेते हैं, $4,000 आपको महीने में मिल रहे हैं ना। $4,000 साउंड्स वेरी गुड, बट वहां के खर्चे के लिए उतना भी अच्छा नहीं है, काफी महंगा है वहां पे रहना, खाना पीना, रेंट पे करना एटसेट्रा, राइट श्रेया? तो बिकॉज इट इज सो एक्सपेंसिव, तो आपकी सेविंग्स बहुत ज्यादा नहीं हो रही, बट आपने $4,000 में तब भी आपने समहाउ $500 बचा लिया एक महीने में। $500 इंटू 75 रुपया, यू नो नाउ $1 इज 75 रुपीज, तो $500 का मतलब है लगभग 37,000 रुपया। तो अगर आपने 37,000 रुपीज इंडिया में वापस भेज दिया, 37,000 इंडिया में काफी अच्छा अमाउंट है, और ये मैं बहुत छोटा फिगर ले रहा हूं, $500। अगर $1,000 आपने घर भेजा तो फिर 75,000 रुपए हो गए, ठीक है श्रेया? So that is a very good amount of money for India, and that is where Kerala earns a lot of money, क्योंकि केरला के बहुत लोग मिडिल ईस्ट में रहते हैं और मिडिल ईस्ट में कोई सिटीजनशिप नहीं पाया जाता, इसलिए आप जितना भी पैसा कमाओगे, मोस्टली लोगों का यही एम रहता है कि वो पैसा वापस भेजे। यूएस में, कनाडा में, यूके में, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में आपको सिटीजनशिप मिल सकता है, ग्रीन कार्ड मिल सकता है, तो इसलिए लोग वहां जाके वहीं के बन जाते हैं और 1-2 जनरेशन बाद वो पैसा भेजना रुक जाते हैं। लेकिन यूएई में आप जितने भी साल रुको, आप पैसा वापस भेजते रहते हो। दैट इज द बिगेस्ट एडवांटेज दैट केरला हैज। केरला के बहुत लोग मिडिल ईस्ट में रहते हैं। ठीक है श्रेया, just let me know if you understood. I have explained in Hindi as you asked. ठीक है, great. Just confirm to me if you understood this thing. Okay. Healthcare facilities have, okay, great Shreya, thanks, you've confirmed. Similarly, there are other things mentioned about these states. I will get into that later on. What are the other developments? Let me go through some of the local pages in the newspaper. Okay, now there's an important point on page number 2, the city pages. It's about the Delhi High Court. I'll read out to you the heading. Facebook needs to review its privacy policy. So basically, Facebook has a privacy policy which allows it relatively easy for others such as hackers and unethical people to copy the pictures and use it for other purposes. So what has happened recently is a lot of students' photos were lifted from Instagram and posted on porn sites. This is really dangerous, and Instagram is owned by Facebook, and that is why the High Court has sort of written to Facebook that they need to mend their privacy policy. So Justice Anup Jairam is the one who has been working on this case. He says that while no relief may have been sought against Facebook by the victim, who has approached the court for removing all of the offending contents from the internet, the company remains a proper party to the present proceedings. जो स्टूडेंट्स हार्म्ड हुए थे उन्होंने फेसबुक को नहीं ब्लेम किया है, बट द कोर्ट फील्स दैट फेसबुक नीड्स टू बी वेरी स्ट्रांग, needs to take strong action in such cases, right? That Facebook is also partly to blame. Right, there's a story on the face mask, but they are a little confusing because face mask, the narrative has constantly changed. Initially, N95 masks were considered great. That's what this story also says. But recently, there was one more report suggesting N95 may not be doing its task. So I will leave this for the moment. The local page is not that important, which is why I will not spend too much time. However, there's one story from Delhi which is really important. Shreya, have you heard of the CPCB? This organization CPCB. Let me see if you are aware of this term. It's a government body. So there is a report of the CPCB regarding pollution in Delhi. I've given you a hint. This is related to pollution. Can you tell me, Shreya? Okay, so CPCB stands for Central Pollution Control Board. Where was I? Yeah, Central Pollution Control Board. So CPCB is the body which actually measures the air pollution. We often get figures that Delhi's AQI is 120 or whatever, and this is alarming level, or this is not yet alarming, this is better than last year. I'm sure you've often come across this data from different cities, and Delhi of course is one of the world's most polluted cities in terms of air pollution. So this has been this is the main body which brings out all these studies. So this latest study by CPCB suggests that as we are moving towards unlock, we are right now into phase 3 of the unlock. We have had a couple of phases of lockdown and now we are going through unlock. The CPCB says that pollution which had initially declined in Delhi compared to the previous years, has once again risen, and that is something which is really dangerous for this thing. There is something called AQI. Have you heard of AQI? Let me ask you this question. Yes, good afternoon, Jaggu. How are you doing? You missed out my special class. Today was my debut on the special sessions. That was at 11 a.m. But anyway, I will take more of these sessions and I will keep informing you. So are you guys aware of this term AQI? AQI stands for, anybody here? Please let me know. Okay, so AQI stands for Air Quality Index. It is about, I will follow you on. Okay, cool. Yes, Jaggu, do that. That'll be great. So AQI, as I said, stands for Air Quality Index. And this is the index which measures the total quality of air. So as per this report, when we had our first lockdown in Delhi, in India rather, which lasted from 25th April to 25th March till 14th April, the AQI jitna kam ho utna matlab air better hai. Delhi mein it was 90.23, and that is much lesser compared to last year at the same time when it was 208.57. So it was at an alarming level last year. This year much better. 2017 it was at 197.23, so likely pretty bad. Likewise, in the lockdown second phase, which lasted till 3rd May, the AQI increased to 118, but last year it was even worse at 211.94, while in 2018 it was 240.68. Lockdown 3 further worsened it to 137.14, but still about half of last year's at 259.35. Lockdown 4, by the time of the lockdown 4, the gap reduced. Last year, the rains perhaps arrived a little early, which is why it was 156.07 this year and 176.64 last year. So the gap was minimal, although it was 244.64 2 years back. So that suggests that we are actually doing reasonably good work in terms of fighting against pollution. Unlock 1, it got down to 123 because rains came up, and now Unlock 2, further pollution levels have gone down. It is 83.80, but then again, last year it was 134 at this stage, 2 years back it was 103. So this is the time, August and July, when pollution does naturally decrease due to rains trains. But if you look at the percentage decrease, it was very high at lockdown 1. That percentage decrease has reduced. So pollution, initially we were very happy at the start of the lockdown that pollution has reduced so much. That is no longer the case. It is now, as severe as it used to be. I just spoke to you about Facebook and Facebook's policy and how it led to some pornographic incident. But there's also some good news in terms of Facebook. In Delhi, the police of Delhi and the police of Mumbai have worked together, worked with the DCP of cybercrime in Delhi. They received a call from Ireland, where the Facebook data center is located, and it mentioned about somebody who had grown suicidal. I'm not going to take his name. No, June is not over. I have just done one class. Tomorrow will be my second class, Jaggu. I've done one session on June current affairs. Tomorrow will be my second. And day after, I will be finishing the June current affairs. So I will take 2 more sessions, not to worry, Jaggu. Where was I? Okay, so Delhi and... so this person, I'm not going to take his name, but he had been suicidal. Facebook saw that on his, note online, and they informed the police in Delhi and Mumbai, which worked together, and so he has been rescued. And in fact, a suicide prevention helpline has been mentioned. It is known as Sanjeevani Society for Mental Health. So telephone number has been mentioned in case one feels that there is such a case. One should be able to knock it down. The last story from this page, which is page 3, is about a body called DSLSA. DSLSA stands for Delhi State Legal Services Authority. They have conducted the first ever online Lok Adalat. Lok Adalats have, of course, always been conducted in person, but now it has been conducted online after a really... so this is something which is unique. As the authorities have mentioned. Court Judge Mr. N.V. Ramana, who's the executive chairperson of the body, NALSA, which is National Level, National Legal Services Authority, he said that during these testing times, we do need to come up with innovative methods. So moving on to the bit of north and east, there is very important story from the city of Gurugram, where I stay in. Part of the NCR near Delhi. So Gurugram is going to see, Gurugram is famous for its, it's well connected to Delhi and the other neighboring cities through its metro, but now it is also set to receive good quality railways, not just metro but also railways. So there is this new corridor which will be set up known as the Haryana Orbital Rail Corridor. Haryana Orbital Rail Corridor. Orbital, you can understand, it runs like an orbit, like a roundabout. Not a perfect circle, but it's like a circle which goes here and then it comes back. So you can call it a semicircle. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the geography of Delhi. Jaggu, are you from Delhi by any chance? Delhi or nearby? So basically there's a town called Palwal, which is near Faridabad towards the Uttar Pradesh border. So from Palwal, if you wish to reach any other part of Haryana, you would often have to bisect Delhi. You'd have to go through Delhi. So thus unnecessarily increasing the pollution and traffic in Delhi. And of course, it all often leads to increase in taxes because there are state taxes. So now what you do is from Palwal, you enter Faridabad, from there to Gurugram. So this is Palwal, Faridabad. This is Delhi, big one here. Palwal, Faridabad, Gurugram, Sohna. Here we have Sonipat. So Sonipat is again a very important city just north of Delhi. So if you want to reach from Palwal to Sonipat, this roundabout will carry you easily and then you can bisect Delhi. And of course, for people from Gurugram as well, they can reach Sonipat much easier. Okay, great, Jaggu. Okay. So the total length will be 121,742 kilometers. It will also include Manesar and Sohna, which are satellite towns from Gurugram. The total project cost runs into more than 5,000 crore rupees, and the number of stations will now be 17. There are only 3 on this circuit. 14 new stations will be constructed on this circuit. In fact, it is also going to be a fast train with a speed potential of about 160 kilometers per hour. The implementation will be through a PPP model. Are you aware of this term, PPP? PPP stands for, any idea? There's also PPP in economics, known as purchasing power parity, but this is different. This stands for public-private partnership. This is a combination. This is where the government and the private sector have together collaborated. So the money is partly public, government's money, and partly private. Government's main job is in allocating land, because land acquisition is something which private companies cannot do easily. So the government goes out, purchases the land, procures the land, and that is where the private companies do most of the construction. There will also be a feeder route connectivity, which will be dedicated to freight corridor. Do you know the meaning of this term, freight? Especially if you're commerce students, you've done accountancy, you might know, but otherwise it could be difficult. Shreya, are you still there? Any idea what is freight? Freight stands for goods trains. Okay, so something which has goods and not people. Okay, Shreya, in case you're still there, do let me know what is freight. Point-to-point protocol is something, Shreya, you've answered me from a computer's point of view, but I was talking from an economy point of view. So here PPP stands for public-private partnership. I'll just write it down, public-private partnership. Okay. Okay, cool. Right, so this is the trains will be of metro quality, and this is going to massively improve the supply chain and the economy of the region. It is known as the HORC, Haryana Orbital Rail Corridor Limited. The Ministry of Railways has approved in principle to work on this thing. I had told you a few weeks back about the Bhopal gas tragedy survivors. Many of them, of course, have still not got justice, and some of them, they are seeking for increased funds now due to having to work with COVID-19. COVID-19 is one. In addition, they already have comorbidity, so they are amongst the most vulnerable of group because their bodies and their overall immunity is, of course, not that strong, which is why they are seeking additional funds right now. So there's a human rights panel which was formed. There's a body called NHRC, or National Human Rights Commission. So they had formed a panel to investigate the Bhopal gas Pidit Mahila Udyog Sangathan. They had filed a report. So they have asked the local government in Madhya Pradesh to work to help these people. In Punjab, we are seeing some clashes, verbal clashes between the ruling Congress and the opposition Aam Aadmi Party due to the health tragedy which has taken place. Some of you may be aware, more than 100 people have died in the hooch tragedy, the illicit hooch tragedy. So the Punjab Health Minister, Mr. Balbir Singh Sidhu, he has reiterated that the government is working hard to resolve this problem, and that the opposition need not worry. We are working in tandem. There's a heart-lifting story from the northeast of the country in Nagaland. There's an elderly couple, one of whom is 93 years old, his wife is 79. They already had comorbidities. You understand this term, comorbidities? That is pre-existing health issues. So they are among the people who are more likely to be infected. COVID-19 does not, the virus has not been isolated. So directly many people are not affected. But this virus does afflict people who have existing problems. So this couple already had problems. So they could have been among the most vulnerable. However, they have recovered. This is great news. This just shows that COVID-19 too can be beaten, although the struggle is hard. Right. Some news from the west of the country. There was this scam a few years back in Maharashtra known as the Krushi Sevak recruitment scam. So that has not yet been resolved. So the existing government has written to the authorities. Yes, that's correct, Jaggu. So the existing government, the Mahavikas Aghadi government, has written to the authorities to work on this. Have you heard of this district? Since Jaggu, you are in Gujarat, you might be aware of this district in Maharashtra called Satara, Satara. So Satara was actually one of the major strongholds of the Maratha Empire at the peak of its powers. So in Satara, something important has taken place. So the ruling government, Maharashtra has a three-party government. The Shiva Sena, NCP, and the Congress, they are together in what is called the MVA, or the Mahavikas Aghadi. So Sharad Pawar, who's often considered one of the most powerful leaders from Maharashtra, he, along with the health minister, Mr. Rajesh Tope, they have identified a new Rt Pcr lab which will start operations today. Now, what is an Rt Pcr? Let me read out to you the full form. That'll be easier for you guys. It's called reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction, Rt Pcr, which is one of the best scientific methods to test for any COVID-19 symptoms. So they are among the fastest ones to come out with the results. So that is something that has been announced here. There is some controversy with the state of Karnataka, between Maharashtra and Karnataka, regarding a statue of Shivaji Maharaj. But these are hardcore political news. We don't need to get into that. CAT students, this is not relevant. But there's something regarding environment which I want to tell you. This is actually good news. I mean, we often talk of the debilitating effects of... Yes, Jaggu, that's correct. Very good. You have already informed me the full form. That's very good. There is a slight lag time between me speaking and getting the messages, so guys, just bear with it. Okay, we often get to hear negative news about the environment, but now there is something positive in the state of Maharashtra. Maharashtra is flanked on the western side by the Western Ghats. Western Ghats, they are mountains on the west side of the state. Not just Maharashtra, but also in Karnataka and Kerala. We also have the Eastern Ghats on the eastern side. But sticking with the Western Ghats, 77 new butterfly species have been identified in Matheran. Matheran is one of the most important hill areas within the Western Ghats of Maharashtra. They are known as the Sahyadri Mountains in Maharashtra. A 3-member team has identified 140 rare species in the hill station. This was the first study in 125 years. The last such comprehensive study took place in the year 1894. This was by a British scientist, Dr. J.A. Bentham. So he had identified about 78 butterfly species. Since then, no such comprehensive study was done. But then in 2011, this study started and it lasted for 8 years. So a total of 140 rare species have been identified. 77 of them are new. These scientists, this report has been filed in this journal known as the Biodiversity Data Journal. And the scientists working, they are from the BNHS, so the Bombay Natural History Society, one of the best known, wildlife-based research bodies in the country. And there's also the Somaiya Vidya Vihar University, which of course is a educational institution. So they have worked together on releasing this report. The main scientists were Dr. Mandar Sawant, Dr. Nikhil Modak, and Mr. Sagar Sarang, who had been doing this groundwork for 8 years. Goa was one of the states which seemed to have done extremely well against COVID-19, but now the state is struggling again. There were 506 fresh cases yesterday recorded in the state. Right. I'm moving on now to the editorial page, which is usually the most important one, but today there isn't too much to discuss. Okay, that's great, Jaggu. These are all wonderful magazines. So do go ahead. And this knowledge that you acquire will help you in management, but also eventually will help you for other subjects. Like eventually, if you want to go for your UPSC or other entrance exams as well, this will really help you. This habit, if you develop from today itself. Right. Okay. So there's an article. I'll read out to you the headline: "Bringing nuclear risks back into popular imagination." Bringing nuclear risks back into popular imagination. This has been written by Miss Manpreet Sethi. I'll read out to you her credentials. She is a distinguished fellow at the Center for Air Power Studies in New Delhi. Um, she speaks about the little boy that was actually ironically the name of the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima few days back 75 years ago. You probably might be aware 6th August was commemorated as 75 years since the atom bomb was dropped. So the one dropped on Hiroshima was known as Little Boy, and the other one was dropped on the 9th of August called The Fat Man, dropped on Nagasaki, two Japanese cities, which saw 1.5 lakh people dying on the spot. Many more died almost immediately from the after effects, and many more have died over the years, while the others who survived, they are known as the Hibakusha in the Japanese language. They have suffered debilitating psychological and physical effects later on in their lives. So she speaks, Ms. Sethi, she speaks about the fact that nuclear war, which was such a real threat until the 1990s, until the end of the 1980s, due to the Cold War, when there was a block-wise rivalry between the USA-led Western Front and the USSR-led Warsaw Pact. During this period, this was a real threat, but people over the last 3 decades seem to have forgotten. I mean, most of the news channels do not cover the threat of a nuclear holocaust as seriously anymore. But she feels that this is high time we bring it back into debate. Especially because of massive geopolitical tensions. I think you have seen how different countries are locked in tension with each other over the last couple of weeks. We've seen the Indo-China conflagration. We've seen similarly China versus USA. So she feels that a lot of work needs to be done in this case. Right. She also feels that with COVID-19, a lot of the personal liberties have been taken away from people. So a lot of the people are not being able to question different governments. That's a fear that a lot of people have expressed. There's another article for this. At stake in our body is our bodily integrity. This has been written by Ms. Tanisha Ranjit, who's a junior researcher at the Internet Democracy Project, which is a member of the Data Governance Network. So she has also written about such a threat we are facing. Moving on to the 8th page, there is the usual news about Andhra Pradesh facing lots of new issues. 10,000 plus cases in Andhra alone yesterday. 97 people have died. Karnataka saw more than 100 people dying, and Kerala saw 2 more people dying, bringing the total up to 108. Right. In Kerala, in addition, you have heavy rains. So more have been shifted to camps in the state. Okay, so in Telangana, Telangana is India's newest state, youngest state. So a lot of their government buildings have not yet been ready because they were sharing facilities with Andhra for a few years. Now Telangana has got control of Hyderabad completely. So now the state has launched some of the construction. So the Telangana Secretariat, its design is inspired by temple art, and some of the ancient temples have actually played a part. Such as the Nilakanteshwara temple, which is Salangpur, that has played a major role in its new design. The Telangana Minister for Industries, IT and Urban Development, Mr. K.T. Ramarao, who incidentally is also the son of the Chief Minister, Mr. K. Chandrasekhar Rao. So Mr. K.T. Ramarao, he suggests that although in fact, there is an mobile app called Ask KTR. He's popularly known as KTR. So a lot of his followers on the internet, they connect with him directly through this app. There was something started in West Bengal called something like Ask Didi. I don't remember the exact name. Didi is, of course, the popular nickname for the hugely popular leader there, Miss Mamata Banerjee. Similarly, here this was started Ask KTR. So some people have questioned him about the sharing of the Krishna River. I think many of you might be aware the long-standing dispute between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka regarding the waters of the Kaveri River. Chhattisgarh and Odisha similarly have sparred on the Mahanadi River. Now, the two Telugu-speaking states, which is Telangana and Andhra, are facing some dispute regarding the Krishna River. K.T. Ramarao, however, asserts that the friendly relations the state shares with Andhra because of a common history, heritage and language will not affect the Krishna water sharing because the state will be ruthless as usual. Right, so I'm done with this page. Moving on to the 9th page. There's a new government scheme which had been launched from the central government in 2019 in around February or March at the time when the interim budget was presented. That was known as the PM Kisan scheme. Now, the PM Kisan scheme has seen further infusion of money. So another 17,000 crore, that's a staggering amount. Another 17,000 crore is to be released, which will benefit 8.5 crore farmers under the PM Kisan scheme. This was announced by the Prime Minister himself when he was launching the financing scheme on Sunday itself. Some homeopathic doctors, homeopathy is another branch of medicine. They have written to the ministry, to the Supreme Court, in fact, that the Supreme Court should urge the centre to allow homeopathic drugs be used for the COVID-19 cases. So far, it is only allopathic ones which are working, but there has also been talk of homeopathic medicines to work in this case. Controversy rages on in Rajasthan regarding the government, but Mr. Ashok Gehlot, the Chief Minister, has urged his team to stand by the truth. There's going to be some sort of protest by some of the trade unions in the country because of some anti-worker policies which have been started. The banner will Save India Day. Right, there is some news from the opposition Congress party. Congress has confirmed that Ms. Sonia Gandhi will remain the interim president for a while more till a successor is formally elected. Right, I'll move on to the 10th page. So today is a very big day for Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The Union Territory, the islands, will get its first optical fiber network. Mr. Modi will himself be present there. He will be inaugurating a submarine optical fiber which will be connected from Chennai to Port Blair, the capital of the UT. And this is going to be, how shall I put it? This is going to be a landmark because Andaman and Nicobar has until recently not enjoyed the kind of internet support which the mainland of the country has. So this is going to liberate the internet usage much more in that state. So this overall 300 kilometers of national highway is also expected to be completed. That has been, I'm talking of the fiber network, not roads. That has been confirmed by the Prime Minister himself. So he will be there today. A new book has been released by Mr. Yatish Yadav, who's the writer. He's a journalist. The name of the book is RAW, which is India's international intelligence agency. So it says RAW, a history of India's covert operations. So he's actually gone into a lot of the international operations and how our forces have solved them. He also asserts that the Khalistan movement, which was at its peak in the 1980s, received a lot of support, tacit support, especially from the West, from a lot of foreign countries, Western countries. They would often turn a blind eye to a lot of the funding that took place for the Khalistan movement from their boundaries. Right. The pages, they sometimes turn here and there due to, yeah, that's it now. Okay, the Hindu also comes out with its education page every day, not every day, every of today. Today is, I believe, Monday. So it talks about how a lot of students are facing uncertainty because they have not gone through their exams this year. So this is leading to a lot of tension as so many educational institutions are temporarily closed right now. I had told you a few days back about the story from Afghanistan where there is this body called Loya Jirga, which is a group of all the tribal bodies. Shreya, are you still there? You've been silent for a while. Do let me know if you have any comments, Shreya. So Loya Jirga is a body of elders from Afghanistan's different tribes. There has been a dialogue going on between the Taliban versus the central government of Afghanistan, led by Mr. Ashraf Ghani, who's the prime minister. These two have been fighting each other for years now. But the Loya Jirga, which is an ancient tribal body, they have been sort of intermediaries in this, trying to resolve the conflict between the two sides. One of the claims that Taliban has wanted is the release of 400 prisoners who remain inside the Afghan prisons. They want these 400 prisoners to be released. In fact, a few days back, there was actually an attack on one of the prisons in Afghanistan where 29 or 30 people died. So this battle has been going on. So Shreya, today is your first class on my YouTube newspaper sessions. Hope it has been useful. Hope you've learned quite a bit today. Do let me know if you have any doubts. Now, the USA does not have, this is an important piece of news. Have you heard of this country, Taiwan? Have you heard of this country, Taiwan? And what about Taiwan are you aware of? Do let me know if there's something about Taiwan you are aware of. Let me just get some water for myself. Just excuse me for a moment. I will allot some additional time as well for your doubts at the end of the class. So in case you have any doubts in between my class, do note them down somewhere. I'll keep some time at the end. You can get back to me. Okay, so Taiwan is actually an island off the mainland of China. And in 1948, there was a revolution in China, the Chinese Revolution, between the nationalists led by Chiang Kai-shek and the communists led by by Mao Zedong. The Maoists, that they originate from that philosophy. So Mao Zedong's team won. China became a communist nation, and Chiang Kai-shek, who lost, he fled to this island called Taiwan. Since then, they have run Taiwan like an independent country, although China claims. Okay, now I'll tell you, Shreya. So, but China claims that Taiwan is Chinese territory. So having international relations with Taiwan is a really tricky thing, because the moment if I'm the government of India and I have open relations with Taiwan, if I open an embassy there, then I am directly stating that Taiwan is an independent country, and thus angering China. I hope you understood the link, because China does not claim Taiwan to be independent. If I am having an embassy, because an embassy is something you can only open in a foreign country. You can't have two embassies in one country, right? So if I have open relations with Taiwan, it is going to anger. Taiwan watermelon seeds quite famous in India. Okay. I wasn't aware of this. Thanks. The electronics also very famous. You guys may have heard of the company HTC. HTC is from whom I bought my first ever smartphone about 6-7 years back. HTC is also a Taiwanese company. Taiwan is much richer than China. The average per capita income is really high. Right. So now USA has done something interesting. The health secretary of USA does not have ministers. The highest person in any field is called a secretary. So the US health secretary, his name is Alex Azar. He has visited Taiwan. This is the highest level visit by an American official to Taiwan since 1979. This is something sure to anger China. After 41 years, an American official has visited Taiwan. However, the health secretary, he says that I went there because I wanted to learn about the virus, because Taiwan was obviously one of the first countries apart from China to be affected. They are next door neighbors. But Taiwan also fought the crisis very strongly, and there have been very few deaths or cases comparatively in Taiwan compared to the rest of the world, compared to USA. So the official line for visiting Taiwan is not political, it is for health, but then you have to give some excuse. That's something. Sri Lanka's new Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, he was acting PM. Now he was being sworn in as the Prime Minister. His party won a landslide election, winning 145 out of 225 seats in the country. His younger brother is incidentally the president, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa. So there's a picture showing how the Rajapaksa brothers have greeted each other and celebrated. Brazil's numbers have crossed 100,000, the death toll in Brazil. This is really alarming. So after USA, the most affected country, the state of Victoria, home to the city of Melbourne in Australia, they have also had a bad day with about 400 odd cases and about 17 deaths in one single day. This has been the worst thing so far. Have you heard of this country, Belarus? It's in Eastern Europe. Anything else you are aware of this country? Because they have been in the news as well. Again, something to do with politics and elections. Is anybody aware of something to do with this country, Belarus? Okay, so Belarus is actually a neighbor of Russia. So Belarus is a neighbor of Russia. So Belarus is actually a neighbor. Yeah, I was just checking my volume on the phone. Forgive me for this time. So anyway, it's a neighboring country of Russia. It used to be part of the USSR, just west of Russia, and in fact, one of the most Russianized of the former USSR countries. Like a lot of the countries which used to be part of the USSR, this country too has sort of seen a dictatorship arising. Officially, there are democracy, but the same party and the same person wins again and again and again. So since 1994, since the time they've had their first elections, Alexander Lukashenko has been the president for 26 consecutive years, but this year in 2020, he's now 65 years old. He's actually facing one of his toughest contests. The country goes to the votes, did have its voting on Sunday. The results are not yet out. He's actually facing competition from this lady. Her name is Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. She was a former English teacher. But she has been part of the opposition since her husband, who's a blogger and anti the president, has been jailed by the president. So since then, she has emerged as his main rival. Right. So let's see what the results throw up in Belarus. Lebanon, of course, there are more protests because Lebanon has seen a terrible economic crisis. The currency has gotten devalued completely. On top of that, you saw that ammonium nitrate burst and how more than about 150 odd people died in this thing. There has been a slight oil leak off the coast of Mauritius. I'm sure you've heard of the country Mauritius. Maybe your brother, sister, they've gone for honeymoon. It's a popular honeymoon spot for Indians, and generally it's very famous for tourism. It is located on the Indian Ocean, just off the coast of Africa. Majority of people of Mauritius are of Indian origin. Majority of the people follow Hinduism as their religion. So in Mauritius, there has been an oil leak. Fortunately, it's not very heavy. But there is this tanker called the MV Wakashio, which is a Japanese oil tanker operated by Mitsui OSK Lines that struck the reef on 25th of July. Fortunately, not much damage has taken place. The ship operator has apologized for this leak. There are floods going on in several Indian states, but also abroad in South Korea. At least 30 people have been killed and at least 12 are missing with floods taking place. New Zealand, which has been broadly considered one of the countries that has best fought the COVID-19 case. They have now seen exactly 100 days since not a single case has been locally identified. Some foreigners have been identified, but they have been isolated and put in quarantine zones. But for 100 days, not a single new case in New Zealand. Just, while we appreciate that country, just a note of caution, our neighboring country in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, also went through exactly 99 days without a single case. But now the cases have come back, and the country has recorded its first few deaths even, and already the number of cases have gone up to a few hundred. And in fact, the virus which is now returned is much more virulent as a strain than the previous one. So this is not suggesting that the virus will come back in New Zealand. All I'm suggesting is that there should be a note of caution as much as we celebrate the performance. Finally, I'm moving on to my favorite page, which is the sports page. So I'll just check out the nationality of this person. Just give me a moment. Okay, so he's Belgian. Right, fine. Got it done. So Formula One, I hope some of you might be following Formula One. Anybody here follows Formula One? I used to when I was in quite a few years back, not so regular now. So so in Formula One, what happens is there are 20 odd races in a year, and per race there are about 22 riders, and each of them divided into 11 teams. So these teams are sponsored by the car companies. Each car company will have two drivers. Right, so Ferrari from Italy is historically the giant. Red Bull Racing is also coming up. Mercedes leads this year. This year, Mercedes has been right on top. So Lewis Hamilton, who's British, and Bottas, Valtteri Bottas, who I believe is Italian, they have been leading in almost everything. In fact, every race this year has seen Mercedes finish on top. This is the first race. This was the Grand Prix in the British Grand Prix held in Silverstone. Yes, Jaggu, I'm coming to you. Let me just finish my present point, then I'll come to you. Jaggu, you can ask me at the end of the class as well. At the end of the class, I'll leave aside 5 to 10 minutes, so you can even ask me at that time. Okay, so Formula One, what has happened is the British Grand Prix held in Silverstone near London. Lewis Hamilton, who's British himself, has finished second, but first has been the Belgian rider Max Verstappen. Is the first place position by a non-Mercedes driver this year. So kudos to him. He belongs to the Red Bull Racing team. Some news from football. Lionel Messi has inspired Barcelona through to the quarterfinals. The first leg was drawn 1-1 against Napoli, but now they have won. Barcelona will be playing German giants Bayern Munich in the quarterfinal. Probably one of the hottest games to watch out. The Champions League restarts on the 13th, the quarterfinals. And this year, the Champions League, I don't know if you're aware, all the matches will take place in Portugal. Because of COVID-19, you didn't want much of inter-country travel. So they've reduced it from two-legged matches to just a single leg. And they will all be held in one country. So Portugal, in fact, one city of Lisboa, where you have these bio bubbles, that is what is going to host the remaining 7 matches. 4 quarterfinals, 2 semi-finals, and 1 final. Benfica. There are 2 stadiums in Portugal, in Lisbon. One belongs to the super club Benfica, and one to their rivals Sporting Lisbon. So there, all these 7 matches will now take place. There is news from Indian domestic cricket. The Ranji Trophy, which usually begins in September or October. This year it will begin on December 13th. Due to the COVID-19, the start has been delayed. And in fact, the 50-over tournaments might be reduced this time. We may not have the Mushtaq Ali Trophy or the Challenger Series. The Dalip Trophy has been de-glamorized in recent years, and that might continue. It may not be held at all this year. It used to be regional, the Dalip Trophy, 5 regions, but now it is 3 different teams which are selected by the BCCI. The Irani Trophy, which is played between the champions of a state, Saurashtra this time are the champions versus the rest of India. This may still be held, so final decision has not been taken for that. The England-Pakistan Test series is going on. England won the first test. Ben Stokes, the English player, all-rounder, he will not be able to play the remaining matches. He has already confirmed he is returning to New Zealand. He's originally from New Zealand, so he will be returning home due to personal reasons. Juventus Football Club now has a new manager. You're probably aware they got knocked out of the Champions League. The next day itself, manager Maurizio Sarri, who did win the Serie A or the domestic league, won the FA Cup last year with Chelsea, almost won Napoli the Serie A, but he has been sacked, replaced by former Juventus legend Rt Pirlo. For him, this is his first senior coaching role. He was also star of the Italian football team during the 2006 World Cup, which they won. And Euro 2012 was almost a one-man show. Almost single-handedly, he took Italy to the finals of Euro 2012. Some news from bike racing. The Czech MotoGP has been won by a South African. His name is Brad Binder. Right, and finally from the world of sports, there are two more news from the sports. There's one tragic news of former India international player Lalsharam Manitombi Singh. He has passed away at the age of 39. He's from Manipur. He had played about quite a few international matches for India under the leadership of Baichung Bhutia. He has passed away at the age of 39. Used to play for Mohan Bagan at club level. Now moving on to Arjuna Awards. Arjuna Awards is one of the most prestigious sports awards in the country. The highest sports award every year is the Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna Award, given to one person or maybe two or three. But Arjuna Awards are given to multiple people. So there has been a strong suggestion that this year some carom players also be included. Carom, you know, a lot of us are playing carom now with the lockdowns. Poor, rich, young, old, doesn't matter. Anybody can play. So there is a strong suggestion that has come out that carom players should also be included in the Arjuna Awards this year. So two players in particular, Miss Rashmi Kumari and Miss S. Apurva, their names have come out as key contenders to get the thing. I will quickly run through the Times of India before I take your questions. Jagu, you can in fact ask me the questions now itself. Do ask me the 2-3 questions you had on newspaper reading, and then I will continue with the Times of India. So whatever questions you have, let me know. I'll quickly run through the Education Times, which is a supplement of the Times of India. There is this story about girls doing extremely well in schools, but somehow in the long run, there are very few women CEOs, and this is something that needs to change. The JEE Advanced will not be held in foreign countries this year. In fact, there is data regarding UPSC exam as well, where apparently only 23% of those qualified are women. There's one really important story on the use of social sciences in the today's business world, today's work area. So in fact, okay, let me answer your question first. Jaggu, you said I read newspaper magazine up to 3 to 4 hours. It is too much. Yeah, it's okay. I think instead of reading for so many hours, you can probably just, because I take a session every day. So instead of you reading every day, you can actually read for half an hour to an hour every day. You can go through the editorial. That's it. But apart from that, you can probably attend my session, because I think you're attending mine every day. I think that should be enough. So my session usually lasts for an hour and a half. So 90 minutes of my session and 1 hour separately, I think that should be enough, Jaggu. That's just my personal belief. You let me know if that works with you. Right, does it make sense? You read the paper for an hour and attend my session for about an hour and a half. I think that should be enough. Okay, so there is this important story about social sciences, social science topics such as history, psychology and sociology and how they're really picking up. And they, in fact, have added a lot of quantitative topics within their subject to make it even more relevant for the present times, because a lot of research in these areas is actually taking place through the use of numbers, because now there's a lot of data available. So business analytics is being used heavily. So I'll give you some example. There's a field called econometrics used a lot in economics, political methodology used in political science, psychometrics used in psychology, cliometrics used in history. So these are areas which are really coming up now, and you'll be surprised to know that as per a Harvard Business Review study, Amazon had hired more than 150 economists in 2019. This is more than the Federal Reserve had hired. We tend to think of economists working as academicians or in research firms, but they're actually working even in private company. These people are known as the tech economists, and they are really coming up in USA. There are also many economists hired by Facebook, eBay, Microsoft, Airbnb, Uber, etc. In fact, many even have teams of PhD economists. Because of the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence, it's really coming up. A lot of sociologists are working with government organization and private research firms for their growth areas. For example, a lot of these rural schemes, sociologists are used. Shreya, don't worry about that. I think you can start attending my colleagues' classes. Let me just introduce you to Mr. Rajul Khare. And if you attend his classes, things will get so much easier for you. So I have turned on to my channel, which is Let's Crack Management Exams. So here we have all our trainers' classes. Right, so one of the trainers you can see is Mr. Rajul Khare. Where is he now? Yes, can you see this, Shreya? Rajul Khare. So if you attend his classes, things will be much easier. You can even end up enrolling for his classes. I'll just write down your name. So this is the thing, RKUS, that is the code. You can enroll using this thing. So he is my colleague. Do feel free to attend his classes. I think Jaggu is already attending his classes, so Jaggu will further help you with this. Okay, so in maths, he is an ultimate wizard. He will help you completely. And we are teammates. We are part of the same channel. It's called Let's Crack Management Exams. Okay. So in fact, it also says there are lots of art students now in the IIMs. There's an article on geology, right? Geology is something which also a lot of people can look at, and how that is something, because geology is so much important now, thanks to all the minerals that need to be extracted from the Earth's crust. So we do need geologists, especially if we further expand outer space, the other planets, the moons. Geologists will really come in handy. Right. I'll quickly go in through the Times of India, a couple of things from the Times of India. There is this detailed report from the Lancet. Lancet is one of the most respected British medical journals. So the Lancet has come out with this report on populations. There's this myth that human population will go on rising and rising, but that is actually not true. Any idea what is India's fertility rate? Fertility rate is the number of children on average per couple. Any idea what is the fertility rate at present in India? You will be surprised. After that, I will also ask you the fertility rate in Bangladesh, a country we often assume where there are kids dime a dozen, but you'll be surprised to read the stats. Rajul sir, not Raju. By mistake, I wrote Raju. Just make that change. Okay, any idea guys, what is India's fertility rate and what is Bangladesh's fertility rate? I can't see the answers as yet from you guys. Fertility rate is the number of children born per couple. Okay, there has been no answer as yet, so let me just let you guys know. So first of all, what is India's fertility rate is only 2.1. We assume that Indians, we have many children. 2.2, sorry. In India, it's 2.2. Bangladesh is 2.1. Pakistan is doing much worse at 3.4. 2.2 means that for every 5 couples in India, there are 11 kids born, which is not such a bad figure. We have not yet reached replacement level rates because older people are now living longer than they used to. But we are still on the way of solving the population problem. So the report says that by 2040, India's population will peak at about 1.6 billion, after which we will start declining. And by the end of this century, India's population will barely be above a billion. China's, on the other hand, has already peaked. It might further peak till 2030, but after that, it will go down drastically, and China's population will almost halve. It will be less than a billion. Shockingly, the second most populated country at the end of this century will be African country Nigeria. Their population could reach about a billion, and only at the end of this century will it peak. Only at the start of the next century will Nigeria's population start stabilizing. Pakistan will also cross significantly, but will reduce with time. Bangladesh, on the other hand, its population will reduce. It will already start reducing in the next decade itself, and it will cross. It is about 150 million now, and it will reduce to about 110 million in Bangladesh. So population figures are not as dire as people had predicted. Brazil's population will go up, USA's will also go up, but eventually they will all come down. USA and Australia will make up a huge part of its population through immigration from other countries. Now, Japan is one country which is going to be affected real badly. They've already seen how population is not really increasing, but it's in fact decreasing. Okay, great. Jaggu and Shreya, both from similar backgrounds, so you can actually work together, form a group, and we can all study together. That'll be great fun. Okay, now what impact does it have on the economy? Japan, for instance, already sees a lot of older people, and so for a lot of people above 80, they are having to be supported by youngsters. That is something which is a threat. Over a period of time, the fertility rate will further reduce. What are the factors? One is rising female literacy and late marriage, greater urbanization, big fall in child mortality, rising share of women in labor force, a high and rising cost of bringing up a child, and also dilution of religion in daily life. Because of this, the fertility rate will keep reducing, and there will be far fewer children. Now, what impact will it have on the economy? By 2030, by 2040, India's economy, by 2050, India's economy will be the third largest in the world. USA will be second. And okay, by 2030, India's economy will cross France, UK, and Germany. So we'll be the fourth biggest on earth. By 2050, we'll be the third highest. We'll remain the third highest by the end of this century. China will overtake USA in 2050 in terms of GDP size, but by 2100, USA will claw back to be the world's largest economy. Japan will get down to third it's now third. It will remain third by 2030, but by 2050 it will reduce to fourth. It will retain its fourth spot till the end of the century. Germany, UK, France, they will remain at fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever. That is fairly not too much of a difference between them. Right, India will in fact have the world's largest workforce from the 2020s till 2100, says this report. So life is not as bad as we were predicting. Population will not be as dire as the fears were. Okay, there's some business news would like to read out to you. So one of the heads of Volkswagen, in fact, his name is Mr. Gur Pratap Singh Boparai. He's the MD of Volkswagen Group's India businesses and companies. Also, he heads two plants. The companies he runs as the head are Skoda, Volkswagen, Audi, Lamborghini, and Porsche. They are all Volkswagen brands. He says that India is not a very good place to do business. The ease of doing business is not there. He says that curbs on imports of critical parts from China is actually a retrograde step, that the sector will struggle because of that. There is also this story from the AAR, which says that AAR is the authority for advanced rulings. They have suggested that coaching classes should not be eligible for GST exemptions. So snacking has long been really popular in the country, but now a lot of the FMCG brands, they are investing on healthier alternatives thanks to COVID-19. So pasta noodles' sales have jumped because people are seriously looking into snacking because we are at home, not eating out much. So pasta consumption has jumped nearly 3.5 times. That's shocking. From the between April and July, in just 2 months, from the second week of April to the second week of July, 3 months rather, from 2,200 tons to 7,600 tons. Noodles market grown by 27% as well, from 58,000 tons to 74,000 tons. Consumption of biscuits jumped by 52%. There's an extra 1.1 kg for the same period purchased. And salty snacks also grown up by a third. So companies are under this thing to have more healthier snacking options. That's what they are doing. So this is a study which has been brought out by Kantar Worldwide Division. The MD, Mr. K. Ramakrishnan, he says that snacking has seen significant growth. We are seeing 220 additional grams of noodles were brought during this period on average by every person. So different companies such as ITC's Yippee brand is also doubling up to work on FMC. This is a very important piece of news because this can have massive ramifications towards your business preparations this year. Let me see if there's anything else which is of relevance, not covered as yet, not covered on the other days. So a lot of psychological problems students in DU are facing, which is why DU has come up with its own. Yes, that's correct. FMCGs are performing well even now. During lockdown, they're performing really well because of the fact that we are at home, and so that's something we keep munching in stuff. That may not be the best thing to do, but that's what human beings do. Right. So that's pretty much it. There's not much else. Please, so do not miss tomorrow's session. Tomorrow I'm taking up 3 sessions. One of them is going to be, do help me with upvotes on YouTube as well. Because quite a few of you have been watching. Do give me upvotes here. That will help me. And because I'm new to this platform now, at the end of, so tomorrow I'm going to take 3 sessions. As promised, I'll be continuing with June current affairs. We'll do the second class of June. I'll also take a newspaper reading of tomorrow. And if you remember yesterday, that is Sunday, I did not go through the newspaper. So yesterday's paper I will also analyze tomorrow. So there will be a total of 3 classes. May not be possible to attend all of them, but at least do not miss the morning class, which is for June current affairs. Right. So I'll keep the session open for a few minutes. You guys can come up with any questions you have. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe to my sessions. This is my code at the bottom, AD09. So in case you are signing in through this network, this is going to be your code. So I'm keeping the session open for a few minutes. Tomorrow's time, let me quickly go through. I'll just go through and let you know. Tomorrow is 11th, right? Yeah. So tomorrow the first session starts at 10:30 a.m. Do not miss this class. 10:30 a.m. I'm doing June current affairs, the second part. So do let me know if there are any other questions. Okay, cool, Jaggu. Looking forward. Are you still there, Shreya? If you have any questions, do let me know, and then I'll wrap up. Okay, which institutes you can go for your further studies? Of course, you aim for the IIMs. That's what you do. If you are a CAT student, your ultimate objective has to be for IIMs. So again, I would say it depends on what percentile you're getting. Shreya, have you started with your mocks? Have you given any mock exams? Looking at your background of zoology, I had told you in the previous class as well, but I will suggest this class. This इस क्लास में भी दोबारा मैं बताता हूँ आपको. Indian Institute of Forest Management in Bhopal. I'm a student from there, so this is ideal for you because उसमें management का भी होगा और zoology का भी होगा, and of course your career. I mean, should be it's an II का मतलब है it's from the Ministry of Environment and Forests. So that is something. The academics is really good there. Okay, okay. ठीक है, तो वो एक बहुत अच्छा ऑप्शन है. इरमा इज ऑल्सो अ वेरी गुड ऑप्शन फॉर यू. लुक एट दिस, look at XIMB. But of course, that does not mean you don't look at conventional management. Please understand that nowadays there's a lot of talk on diversity. So even if you're a student from zoology, that does not mean you cannot make it as a marketing manager. Because marketing mein, FMCG products mein, if you can understand biology and nature well, you can definitely do quite well. So ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Nowadays all IIMs, in fact आज ही अखबार में एजुकेशन टाइम्स में रिपोर्ट आया है कि ऐसे ह्यूमैनिटी स्टूडेंट्स आर एडिंग वैल्यू टू MBA, to the IIMs. So please open your mind for this thing. You can go for IRMA is a very good college. Jaggu also plans to go for it, so I appreciate that. ठीक है श्रेया, does it sort of help assuage your fears? सो इरमा के लिए जीके बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट. सो इट्स वेरी गुड जग्गू कि आप इतनी जल्दी से अभी से ही जीके की तैयारी कर रहे हो. ठीक है guys, then let's wrap up the session. I don't think there's anything else now. See you all tomorrow at 10:30. What say? अभी के लिए let's wrap up. ठीक है, great. Let's wrap up for the day. Thank you so much, all of you. See you all very soon. ठीक है? See you all very soon. This is the code. Do not miss out on the code.